This story is not for the faint of heart. Fear is a part of you. There's no turning back. The nightmare has begun. It was supposed to be a short drive, 2 hours tops. Just you, some gas station coffee, and the kind of music that keeps your brain from drifting off the road. But the night had other plans. The sky stretched above like wet coal, no stars in sight. The road you were on wasn't on GPS anymore, just cracked blacktop and whispering pine trees on both sides. The kind of road that feels forgotten, abandoned for a reason. Then came the light, check engine, glowing amber, then a sudden sputter, a cough from the engine, and silence. You slammed the steering wheel hard. Tried the key again, nothing but a dry, choking sound. No signal on your phone, just a blank bar, not even one desperate little dot. You exhaled slowly, heart already speeding up. That's when you saw them. Headlights, distant at first, then closer, crawling towards you like they didn't want to be seen. An old truck, rust-eaten and green, the kind you'd see in a horror film where things go wrong before the opening credits end. The driver's window rolled down with an aching squeal. "You all right?" A man's voice. Thick accent, southern, slow, drawling, too slow. He was middle-aged, maybe older. A stained trucker cap shadowed most of his face. What little you could see seemed friendly, but forced, like he was mimicking kindness. "Car died," he said cautiously. "No signal." He gave a soft chuckle. "Happens more than you'd think out here. Lucky I came by." He stepped out. Heavy boots, denim jacket, calloused hands. Something in the way he moved felt off, too calm, too deliberate. He walked around your car, then looked under the hood. You watched him closely, unease sliding up your spine. "Not much to do here," he said after a moment. "I got tools back at my place, real close. I can give you a ride." Then you saw it, in the faint glow of your own rear lights, barely visible. Smears on his bumper, thick, dark, red, blood. Your breath hitched. You stepped back, mouth opening to speak. But then came a sharp electric sting at the side of your neck. Needle. Metal. Burning cold. You reached for something, anything, but the world folded inward. The trees tilted, the sky spun. Then black. You came to slowly, like dragging your brain through tar. The truck was moving. Your wrists were tied with something coarse. Duct tape or rope. Your head rested against cold metal. He was humming, cheerfully. A slow, off-key lullaby. Whistling between cracked lips. "You'll be all right," he said softly, not even glancing back. "You're lucky. You got me. Others weren't so lucky." You tried to scream. Nothing came out. Just a dry, broken gasp. The windows were too dark to see outside. The air smelled like sweat, oil, and something else. Decay. Your eyes adjusted. Scraps of old fabric and hair littered the truck bed. Dried blood in the grooves of the floor. You weren't the first. You might not be the last. He chuckled again, like he'd just heard the punchline of a joke no one else understood. The road went on, endless, and no one knew where you were. You awoke to the sound of wood creaking beneath your body. Cold, damp. A moldy smell clung to the air like rot buried deep in the walls. You were lying on a stained mattress in the corner of a dim room. The walls were wood, splintered, water-damaged, and discolored with time. There was a single window, but it had been boarded up crudely with warped planks. No daylight, no moon. Just a flickering yellow bulb hanging by a wire, buzzing faintly like an insect too tired to die. You sat up too quickly. A rush of nausea. The rope burned your wrists, your legs, still bound but loosely, as if your captor wasn't worried about you running. The door creaked open slowly. He entered. Same denim jacket, same heavy boots. A smile carved into his face with unsettling calm. "You made it," he said, as if he'd brought you home from a long trip. "Bet you got questions." He placed something down on the table beside him. A glass of water, or maybe vodka. It was cloudy. You scream, no one hears you. That's just how it is out here. You're in the middle of nothing. He crouched beside you now, face inches away. His breath smelled like copper and meat. His eyes, something was wrong in them, like he hadn't slept in years, or slept too much. "I didn't choose you," he whispered. "The road did. You were there. That's how it works." Then he left, just like that. Locked the door behind him with a sound so final, it could have been a coffin lid closing. You took in the room again, faster this time. A rusted sink in one corner dripping. A pipe visible in the ceiling above it, leaking slightly. The mattress was torn, revealing coiled metal springs like hungry teeth. A shadow flickered past the slit under the door. Not his boots, something barefoot. You froze, every muscle locked. You waited. Another shadow, slower, dragging feet. You didn't breathe. Then, silence. An hour passed, maybe 2. The bulb flickered again. Then something tapped against the wall behind your head. Once, twice. You turned. There was a small, square hole in the wood, no bigger than your fist. It looked like a vent, or maybe a rat hole. Then you heard it. A whisper, a child's voice. "Don't let him feed you. It's not food." You blinked. "What?" "Nothing." The voice was gone. You moved closer to the hole, but there was only silence. Dust. The scent of something long dead. You backed away just in time to hear the key turn again. He came in, carrying a tray. Something warm. The smell was wrong. Sweet and metallic. He placed it in front of you like a waiter. "Eat. You'll need strength." You looked down. The meat on the plate was grey, veined, wrong. He noticed your expression, smiled wider. That's the face they all make. Then he leaned closer again. Voice like gravel dragged through bone. "You're not the first, but you might be the last, if you're quiet enough." The light flickered once more. Darkness pressed in, and the walls swallowed your scream. You didn't sleep. Sleep felt like an invitation to vanish. The plate of food remained untouched. The meat had begun to sweat in the stale heat of the room, releasing a smell that curdled the air. You moved it away from the mattress, afraid even the scent might do something to you. He hadn't returned. Not yet. But the silence wasn't safe. It felt like something was always listening. You remembered the voice from the wall, a child's voice, clear, terrified, and real. You pulled yourself toward the hole again, looked inside, just blackness, but the air from within was colder, like it opened into something deeper, older than the house itself. You whispered, "Are you there?" Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, soft and even. Then words, breathy and slow. "There's a way out, but it's under." You blinked. "Under what?" The whisper paused. Then, "The room moves when he leaves. Count the steps." You backed away, chilled. "The room moves. Later, maybe hours, maybe less." You heard him again. His boots thudded from somewhere far above. Floorboards groaned. A door slammed. Then silence again. You waited, counted to 10. Nothing. You pushed yourself toward the wall again. Hands still tied, you used your elbow to feel the floor. The boards were uneven near the sink. You pressed. One groaned louder than the others. You pushed again. It gave slightly. Loose. You dug your nails in. Splinters stabbed deep, but the board lifted, just an inch. Below it, dirt, damp, something else. Fabric. No, rope. A handle. You pulled. A narrow trapdoor opened with a muffled groan. Cold air burst from it, like exhaling lungs. You didn't want to go down there, but you couldn't stay here. You slithered into the dark, your bound hands awkward in front of you. The opening led to a crawl space, maybe 2 feet high, just enough to move. Pitch black, only sound, your breath, and something else. Soft, scratching. You moved forward, heart jackhammering. The ground beneath you was slick. Something wriggled past your leg. You kept crawling. Then, movement behind you. You froze. A scraping, not crawling, not walking, dragging. You turned your head slowly. In the pitch dark, something moved, low to the ground, inhuman. No face, just breathe. Wet and fast. You shoved yourself forward, panic driving you. The tunnel veered left, then again. You didn't know where you were going, only away. Suddenly, a faint glow ahead. You scrambled toward it. The tunnel opened into a hidden basement, lit only by a cracked emergency light mounted high on the wall. You collapsed inside, gulping air. The floor was concrete, wet. The walls were smeared with something brown and red, symbols maybe, or words scratched by desperate hands. And then you saw them. Photographs, hundreds, taped to the wall. Different faces, different years. Men, women, children, all staring back, all scared. Some photos had dates. The earliest was from 1987. And then, your face. Taped in the corner, dated tonight. You staggered back, slipped, fell. From somewhere above, the floor creaked. He was back, and he knew you had moved. Your breath caught in your throat. He was upstairs. You pressed yourself against the cold basement wall, eyes locked on the narrow tunnel you'd crawled through minutes ago. It gaped like a mouth, ready to betray you. Then, his voice. "Mighty quiet down there," he called, calm, almost playful. "You snooping, sweetheart." You didn't answer, couldn't. Boards creaked above your head, slow, deliberate footsteps. He was pacing, listening, smelling. "I like when they snoop," he continued, closer now. "Shows fight, shows spunk." Another step, then another. "But you gotta know, it never ends well." A long silence, then laughter. Ragged, sharp, full of teeth. You backed further into the room. Your hand brushed something cold, metal. A rusted pipe, jagged at the edge. You gripped it tightly. Light flickered above. The bulb buzzed like it was thinking about dying. Then you noticed it. In the corner of the room, beyond the photographs and symbols, a door, half rotted, barely hanging on its hinges. You moved fast but silent, feet sliding across the slick floor. Every step echoed. You reached the door, tried the handle. Locked. But the wood was weak. You wedged the pipe between the frame and the knob, pushed hard. The wood cracked, splintered. Another shove. The door gave way with a gasp of air behind it, as if whatever was inside had been holding its breath. The room beyond was smaller, tiled. A single chair in the center, bolted to the floor. Leather straps still buckled tight. Dried blood caked the tiles like rotting ivy. But what paralyzed you wasn't the chair. It was what lined the walls, radios, dozens of them. Old, new, cheap, military grade. All wired together with chaotic loops of copper and duct tape. Each had a frequency scribbled beside it in Sharpie. And they were on. White noise hissed from their speakers, low and static. Then one of them spoke. "She's in the room, listening." You staggered back. Another one crackled to life. "Don't breathe, don't let it know." Then from a third, "It's in the walls." Your heart thudded. You reached for the dial on the nearest one, turned it, static, then screaming, guttural, human, short-lived. You yanked your hand away. The voices weren't recordings, they were live. Someone or something was out there speaking on open frequencies, trapped like you, watching you, or worse, hunting you. A loud bang from above, the trapdoor. He was coming. You spun around, searching for an exit. There, a vent near the ceiling, barely big enough, but maybe, just maybe. You pulled the rusted chair beneath it, climbed fast. The metal groaned. Footsteps now. He was climbing down. You shoved the vent's cover. It popped. Barely enough room. You squeezed through as the basement door creaked open behind you. A voice called gently from below. "I told you not to wander." You didn't look back. You crawled deeper into the vent, heart hammering, metal slicing your arms, breath catching on panic. But you weren't alone. Ahead, the dark whispered again. "You're getting closer, but not fast enough." The vent spat you out into darkness. You hit the ground hard. Concrete, damp. The air smelled like rot and mold. You stayed still, listening. Nothing. Then a faint click, a hum. The low buzz of old fluorescent lighting sputtering to life above you. You blinked, adjusted. You were in a hallway, narrow, industrial. Pipes lined the ceiling like veins under skin. The walls had no markings, no signs, just chipped paint and grime. And something else. Scratches, dozens, maybe hundreds, of frantic claw marks gouged into the walls at shoulder height. Some looked fresh. You moved quickly, footsteps echoing despite your best efforts. The silence felt heavy, like it was waiting to be broken. A low whisper trailed behind you. You spun. No one. But your skin crawled, like someone had just exhaled on the back of your neck. You picked up the pace. The hallway ended in a door. No handle, just a swipe panel and a camera in the corner, its red light blinking. Then it blinked off, and the door clicked open. You stepped through. The room beyond was wide, circular, and empty, except for a mirror. Floor to ceiling. Perfectly clean. No frame. Just a reflective wall staring back at you. And in the mirror, not your reflection. You stood there, but the face wasn't yours, not entirely. The eyes were wrong, black. The mouth twitched slightly, like it knew something you didn't. You stepped closer, so did it. You reached out, so did it. Then it smiled. You didn't. You stumbled back, behind you, footsteps. But when you turned, no one. Back to the mirror. Your reflection was gone. Just a room now, except there were figures behind you in the reflection. Tall, still, unmoving. They wore skin, not their own, stretched too tight or too loose. Faces mismatched, mouths sewn shut. You turned again. Empty room. Back to the mirror. They were closer now. You ran, through the only other exit. A heavy steel door marked with a symbol, 3 intersecting circles drawn in red. Down another corridor. This one was colder. The lights flickered, then died completely. Pitch black. You pressed forward, hand on the wall. Then, a voice, behind your ear. "I wore her skin for days," you screamed. Ran blind, slipped, hit the ground. From the dark, crawling. Fingernails on tile. Moans, wet footsteps. Your hand found something. A switch. You flipped it. A single light overhead revealed what you wished you'd never seen. The walls were lined with hooks. From them hung shapes, human, but wrong. Limbs out of proportion. Some had no faces, some had too many. In the center of the room, a table. On it, a girl's dress, torn, bloodied, folded neatly. Next to it, a name tag. Your name. You couldn't move. Your name, handwritten on that faded name tag, pulsed in your vision like a warning. Not a coincidence. A message. He had planned this. The hooks overhead groaned softly, swaying, like something had just passed through. You backed away from the table, knees trembling. Then, the room inhaled. Not a draft, not wind, a breath. The walls pulled inward slightly, then relaxed. The lights flickered with a rhythm. The room was alive. Somewhere inside the walls, something was watching, listening, breathing you in. You turned and bolted through the nearest hallway, not caring where it led. You just needed distance, escape, a door, a hatch, anything. The hallway narrowed. Pipes overhead dripped warm condensation. Your footsteps were a scream against the silence. Then a voice crackled from a vent above you, calm, female, detached. Subject 11 has reached phase 3. Fear response elevated. Memory stability compromised. Commencing reset protocol. You stopped cold. Subject 11. Memory stability? You weren't the first. You might not even be real. A metallic click behind you. You spun. A hatch in the wall had opened on its own. Inside, dim red lights and stairs spiraling down. Against all logic, it felt like the only way forward. You climbed in. The hatch slammed shut above. Darkness again. As you descended, whispers curled up from below like smoke. Familiar. Software. Some even sounded like people you'd known. Your father, your old roommate, your own voice, repeating things you'd forgotten you ever said. Then light, a room, square, walls padded like an asylum cell. In the center, a hospital bed, and someone lying in it. You stepped closer, heart pounding. It was you, same face, same scar on your knee, hooked to machines, eyes darting rapidly beneath closed lids, dreaming. You reached toward your unconscious self, and the lights cut out. Then, a face illuminated inches from yours, pale, raw, lips torn open into a permanent grin. I told you not to dig, it whispered. Now you've dug too deep. The lights blinked on again. The bed was empty. Screams erupted from every speaker in the room. The walls shuddered, and then the floor gave out. You fell into darkness, endless, air rushing past you, whispers rising around you like static, laughter layered with screams, then silence, and a voice, deep and guttural, speaking from inside your skull. You were never missing. You were chosen. The fall never ended. Your body twisted in the void, weightless for what felt like hours. The only sound was a rush of air against your skin, and the deep, gnawing hum of something beneath the surface, something alive. Then, suddenly, light. Not the soft glow of a lamp or the flickering of electricity. Number. This was sharp, bright. A brutal burst of white that stabbed your eyes open, making your skull ache. You hit the ground with a violent thud. Pain, bones, bruises. But there was no real floor. You scrambled up, disoriented, trying to stand. The ground beneath you was moving, shifting. The walls around you were breathing, folding in, stretching out, like the room was trying to swallow you whole. In front of you, another door. The exit you had been searching for. A heavy breath rattled the air. Then a voice, Running again. You should stop. You whipped around, pulse quickening. You knew that voice, the same voice that had led you here, the same voice that had spoken to you in your ear just when you thought you'd escaped. He stood there, his face pale and twisted, a smile so wide it didn't seem human. The door, the room, the walls, they were closing in. You backed up toward the door, each step feeling like it would be your last. You're not going anywhere. You reach for the handle, fingers trembling. And then, the wall to your left buckled, bending inward like a grotesque hand curling toward you. Skin, hands. They emerged from the walls, pressing against the surface, 100 pairs of fingers clawing at the paint and plaster. Faces followed, distorted, decaying faces pressed flat against the walls. It wasn't just a room, it was alive. Don't you get it? You're part of it now. His voice was still gentle, like he was explaining something to a child. You can't leave. None of us ever leave. The air was thick with static. Your skin felt like it was burning, but it wasn't heat. It was something far worse, a sensation of being pulled apart. You yanked at the door. It refused to budge. The walls squeezed in tighter, the hands on the other side clawing for you, growing more frantic. "Let it in," he said, tilting his head, almost fondly. You couldn't breathe. Suddenly, the floor beneath you cracked open, not slowly, but violently, splitting in jagged shards. The room began to distort, twisting into shapes that defied logic. The walls collapsed inward, pulling everything toward the center. The hands reached for you, their fingers cold as death. You closed your eyes, waiting for it to be over, but it didn't end. You opened your eyes again. The walls were gone. The hands, the faces, everything that had been closing in on you vanished. The room was completely empty, void of life, void of shape. And then you realized something. You weren't alone. "You're here now," a voice whispered from behind you. Your body froze. The walls weren't closing in anymore, but the silence was suffocating. A figure stepped forward. It was a man, or had once been one. His face was a hollow mask, hollow eyes fixed on yours. The skin was slipping, hanging loosely off his bones like he had worn it for too long. "You belong to us," he whispered. And with that, the walls came crashing down again. The fall was familiar this time. No weightless drifting, no endless descent into nothingness. Instead, the sensation of crashing, of being pulled downward by invisible hands that knew exactly where you were meant to land. You hit the ground hard once again, but this time the air around you wasn't cold, warm, too warm. The ground beneath you felt soft, like flesh, breathing. You blinked, struggling to orient yourself. The air was thick with a damp metallic scent. The room was dark, but there was a glow coming from somewhere. Not light, but something else. Something organic. You tried to stand, but your legs refused to cooperate. Your hands were shaking as you propped yourself up, fingers digging into the warm, soft ground. Then, the whispers. They were everywhere, beneath your skin, in your bones, in your mind. So close, too close. The walls, if they could even be called walls, moved, rippling like waves on the surface of water. The floor beneath you twisted and pulled as if it was hungry, restless. The same face you'd seen before appeared, his smile stretching impossibly wide, his eyes darker than you remembered. "You're still running, aren't you?" he whispered, his voice a soft, mocking caress. "You're not done yet." You wanted to scream. You wanted to shout, to fight back. but your throat felt dry, like sandpaper scraping against your inside. You couldn't. You had no strength left. You never could escape, he continued, his grin growing wider. And now, you'll never need to. The ground beneath you trembled, and suddenly, the space around you began to shift again. It wasn't just the walls this time. The entire room was moving, bending, pulling at its own seams like it was trying to swallow you whole. Something was emerging from the center of the room, a mass writhing and pulsing with unnatural rhythm. It was dark, covered in layers of slick, glistening skin. A heartbeat. Too many. The room hummed with its noise, and the air became thick, suffocating. A scream tore through your chest, but no sound came. The face before you, your captor, was gone now. In his place, the mass had shifted, taking on the shape of something familiar. A version of you, a twisted, decaying reflection. It smiled. "You're home now," it whispered. The room pulsed again, and the floor began to sink. You tried to move, but your legs wouldn't listen. You couldn't feel them. They were gone. You were falling once more, but this time, the ground wasn't something solid to land on. It was just the void, the end, and then the silence. Some say, when you drive too far into the dark, the road has a way of pulling you in, until you forget what it feels like to leave. The hollow mile is always there, just beyond the edge of your mind, waiting for the next one who's willing to wander too far. The whispers follow you just out of reach, and somewhere just beneath the surface, the walls are still shifting, waiting, always waiting.